Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and today we're going to finish up that project we started a couple videos back where we're making a left side handle for the box and pan brake. As you recall, the only thing we've got left to do other than bluing this is to broach a keyway in this hole. As I said in a previous video, my broach set is a Imperial, and this is 14 millimeter hole. So the 1/2 inch bushing is too small, 5/8 of course is too large. We're going to take this one-shot transfer punch that I use to transfer this hole and attempt to make a broach bushing out of this. We're going to cut the end off. Then we're going to, of course, clean up this shoulder here a little bit, and then mill a keyway in there for this broach. This is, again, out of the Imperial set. It's a 1/4 inch, I'm sorry, a 1/8 broach. Now the key that will go in this is 4 millimeter, which is 157 thousandths. This 8 inch is 125 thousandths. So this is going to be 32 thousandths undersize. So what I'll have to do is either file out 16 thousandths off of each side of the keyway we put in here, or file down half of the key on each side. We'll see about that later. This is mighty thick to try to file all the way through, but we may give that a test. Worst case scenario, I'll have to hold this in a little jeweler's vise and maybe get the Dremel on it a little bit. So first thing let's do is turn around to the lathe. I'm going to carry this over to the bandsaw first and take some length off of that. It doesn't need to be near that long. So I'm going to take some length off of it, and then we'll work on the lathe, cleaning this up and getting it ready to mill the keyway in. All right, I've got the length just cut off to a reasonable length now in comparison to the workpiece. So we're going to face this edge. And while we're right here, I'm going to come up into here, clean this shoulder up a little bit, and even plunge in there a little bit. All right, now I'm just going to get a witness mark out here, about 5/16. All right, I'm going to carry this over to the bandsaw, saw it off where we put our wetness mark, and then come back and face that in. All right, let's face off this head in, shoulder in. All right, I think we're ready to turn around to the mill now and start putting our slot in here for the broach to fit into. Over at the mill now, and since our 14 millimeter is a little larger than a 1/2 inch, we'll use this 1/2 inch parallel for it to have something to set on. We'll bring that in fairly tight. Excuse me. And what we want to do is find the center of that. So I'm going to put my edge finder in. The 3/8 collet I have, R8 collet I have in now. All right. come on down a little bit with the head. And since there's none of this exposed that I can get the center from, I'm going to find the center between the two vice jaws, right up close to the bushing itself. All right, I'll zero out the Y, double check it. That was good. We'll come to the other side. Make a mental note of what the reading was. It was the same, so Y 1/2. All right, so there's our center line. And we're going to be using a 3/16 end mill. That appears to be what this is. It's going to be a little bit tight in 3/16. If I have to step over just a little bit, I will. Now, as I was contemplating doing this, thinking about it in my off time, in the house, in bed, whatever, I kept trying to figure out, rationalize how deep this groove needed to be. And I went back and watched a couple of other videos where guys on YouTube had made bushings like this, and none that I watched actually mentioned the depth, or if they did, they said, well, I need a depth of 325 thousandths or 400 thousandths, whatever. They didn't indicate how they got that depth. And once it come to mind, I figured out, or I realized just how naive I was being, or how short-sighted I was being. The depth needs to be whatever this is, at the smallest point. Because when that starts in there, this broach needs to be flush with the top of this, so that it can start in the hole. So we'll measure that shortly. What I want to do right now is just get the groove started, the keyway started, and we're going to do that. Of course, we're going to start on this end, and then I want to just touch off there, and I'll set my zero on my Z-axis DRO. Again, we want to lower the head about as much as we can so that we don't have to extend the quill any more than we have to. And this is, of course, a small end mill. So I'm going to take it very, very easy as I go. There's about 40 thousandths to start on that. Get the speed up just a little bit more. Tell you what, I'm going to back off to about 20 thousandths at a time until I get a good feel of this. All right, I think we're at the point now where I can just touch off. Well, maybe not quite. All right, I'm going to zero out the Z-axis DRO right there. This is showing a depth of about 390 thousandths. So we're going to go with that till we get a little closer. Turn that light off, maybe cut back a little bit on the glare. Just not sure. Let me get a little better camera set up. Okay, maybe you can get see a little better now of what's happening here. Again, I'm only taking about 25 thousandths at a time. I just don't want to break that end mill. And I'm using the power feed on the x-axis on the mill just to keep it at a steady pace, steady feed. All right, I'm going to keep running this down about 25 thousandths at a time, and I'll bring you back when we get closer to the bottom. All right, that was 375 thousandths. So let's go to the 390. And come back through. All right, I think we're going to have to take a little bit off the width. That's a good clean groove in there, but let's do another quick measurement here. The width on this is 191. And that being let's see, I said 3/16. That's 188, 191. That's about 4 thousandths. Let's take about 3 thousandths off of each side. So I'll unlock the Y. And go to 3 thousandths on this side of, on one side of 0. Now we'll go to 3 thousandths on the other side of 0. All right, and without moving anything, let's see if the broach will go in there. Yes, it does. But it's still just a little bit proud. That's a good fit right there. We're going to go down about another, we're going to make it 400 thousandths instead of 390. If anything, it needs to be anything less than proud. It doesn't need to be sticking up any at all there. That would stop me from being able to start the broach. Let's go back to our other side of 0. All right, let me grab a little file, clean a few of those burrs off. That looks good. I'm happy with that. All right, so what we're going to do now is turn around over to the, actually we're going to go over to the brake and get us a mark on this piece as far as where we actually need to broach that. Remember, this hole is offset. If it was in the center, it wouldn't matter where we broach the keyway, but it's indexed being off-centered. So we'll meet over at the brake and determine where that needs to be. Okay, I hope you're going to be able to see what I'm doing here. But this rod goes all the way through. It actually does have stops on it. And I've tapped it this way up to the stops. Don't want to get it out of time on the other end, but I just tapped it this way so that I've got as much room as possible to work down here. Now what I've done too is indexed a handle on the other end to put this keyway at the very top. So I'm going to put the key in there. I've got a little dicum on there already. And I'm going to try to extend the line of that keyway right on out here to the edge. I want to do that on both sides. I know you can't see what I'm doing right here. All right, so I'm just going to have to eyeball that to the center between those two lines. And that should be where we want the center of the keyway. Now this should only go on here one way. Oops, gotta take the key out. And as I said, I've got the handle on the other side. When we marked the hole on, or the position for the handle, we had it plumb. To get this keyway at the top here, just so I can see it, the handle on the other side is tilted back about the same angle as what we're seeing here. So now what I want to do is try to transfer that point. And I know this is not scientific at all, but I don't really know of any other way. But that little mark right there, I'm going to go back to the workbench and emphasize it just a little bit more. But that should be where our keyway goes. So we'll go over to the press now and get set up and actually start pressing this keyway out. Okay, I'm over at the press now, and I've got the broach bushing in there. I've got it lined up with the mark that we indicated on the brake. I've got starting out with my 2-inch drift up here. If you've not seen my videos where I make these drifts, you might want to check that out. They've got a magnet inside of them that holds them in here, holds them together. Much easier than trying to have 6 hands to hold all the pieces. So let's start this first broach pass. You can't see it in the video, but underneath the press, underneath this section, I have a chair sitting here, and in the chair is a bucket with some shop rags in it, and that's just to catch this broach should it go on through when I get to the bottom. Keep it from hitting metal on the floor, breaking, possibly dulling it. So now we're starting to take a good bite. I believe that's all the jack. Got a little extra grease on this one from our previous job. I'll take the 2-inch out and put the 4-inch in. Tell you what, I can probably drop the 4 into 2 on there. Take me a couple passes to figure out which one of these drifts I'll need. And that might need just a little convincing to get that last little bit. Well, so all it took was touching it. So now we're going to add another bushing in, another spacer. And it's going to take several of these spacers to get that to 2 millimeters deep. We'll run this second one and then we'll come out and take a look at it. All right, I'm going to broach this one with this spacer in there. Then I'll bring you back and show you how deep we are so far. All right, using the two spacers that came with my broach set, 3/16, we've made a pretty good keyway. But I just went over and measured the measured through here, which remember was 14 millimeter. Keyway is 4 millimeter, so measuring between that side and this slot should have had 16. I'm a little bit short, but I just made up some more of these spacers. If you watch one of Keith Fenner's recent videos, he showed broaching out using some spacers he had made himself as well. These are made out of shipping bands, the metal shipping bands. They're about a 1/2 millimeter thick, this particular band is. So I'm going to stack this up. That one I made a little bit thick. Let's see. All right, I'm going to have to file these down just a little bit on the width, but then I'm going to stack it up with 2 more of these in there and broach one more pass through. Okay, I just put one of the homemade shims in there and we're going to try it now. I'm sure it's going to take both of them, but both of them was just too much at one time to get the broach started. All right, let's make this final pass. What I think will be the final pass. Okay, I think we are done broaching now. Here's our keyway. Let's go over to the workbench and talk about what we're going to need to do in regards to what needs to be filed. Okay, I'm over here at the surface grinder now, and I looked at the possibility of trying to widen this out. Remember, we had about 16 thousandths to go on each side, and the only files I've got that would fit in that keyway are these little jeweler's files, and I honestly just don't feel comfortable. I just don't feel like it would be good use of time to try to file out basically overall 32 thousandths with these little files. So we're going to try it here on the surface grinder, and what I've done is take this little jeweler's vise and a parallel. This is 1/8 inch parallel, and remember 1/8 inch is the size of our keyway now, so it's thinner than the key that we're dealing with. I've built up some just with some shim stock, this parallel, so that I've got over half of it sticking out over here on this side. If the grinder wheel hits the top of this vise right here, I'm really not concerned with that. This is just a little project I made a couple years ago. Never really got a lot of use out of it, but I think we're going to get a little bit today, maybe, if it holds together. So we're going to mag this down, and I want to just touch off here. Let's spin that up. Now I want to just touch. All right, I'm going to call that touching off there. Now I'm going to back up over here, and I want to zero out my dial indicator. And we want to go down half the distance of, or half the thickness of that keyway, vertical. So we're going to go down a little over that, 2.25 millimeters, which is 89 thousandths. Be sure I'm thinking right now. And again, the top of that, this little vise right here, may absolutely not be parallel with the bottom. This is just something I did on the milling machine. That's 50 thousandths so far. All right, that's just touching 60 thousandths. There's 70. There's 80. And we said we wanted 89 thousandths. So that should be a little over half the thickness. All right, now I want to come in and just touch off on the face. Let me clean that up all the way. Now I just want to touch the face, the edge, and I'm going to lock down right there, set my zero, and we want to come in we want to go into it. We said about 16 thousandths on each side, so I'm going to try about 18 thousandths, 5 at a time. There's 10. 15. And here's 18 thousandths. Now, leaving the height set exactly where it's at now, we'll come back out on our Z-axis. Now, I want to slide this over here where I can hold it a little better. Take my little file and now I want to turn this around in the vise. Turn our workpiece around. So far that's looking pretty good. I didn't tighten my vise down. I'm going to back out again. Turn it up. And remember, we should be set on our depth. It's just touching. So let's come back in until we touch off on this side, which should be right close to the zero. And that's within about 2 thousandths of the old zero, so we'll reset. All right, let's come in 5. In 15, and now 18. All right, with everything left setting right where it is, we'll slide out here again, do a little deburr. And now we're going to see if this fits in our keyway. A little bit tight. Now it fits in good on this side. I may have a burr over here. I'm going to check that, check the fit, and see if we need to do anything more on that. If so, I'll bring you back. If not, we'll meet over at the break and do a test fit there. So now let's set that down in our key slot that's in the rod. That went in just fine. Handle. And that is working great. Needs a little oil on it, of course. Now, before I tighten this down and mount this in place permanently, I'm going to take this back apart, carry this over to the workbench, clean all the oil and grease off of it and die chem, get it all cleaned up, put it in the kiln, about 500, 550 degrees for a couple of hours, and just heat treat, or not heat treat, but heat blue it. And that'll just help prevent it from rusting in here. So I'll bring you back when we get that set up. Okay, the kiln is up a little higher than I wanted. It's about 650 now. I'll turn it back just a little bit. But it's been about just a little over 30 minutes since it got up to temperature. And I think I know our handle that we just made, looks like a good blue on there. I like that color. I'm just going to set this one to the side. Well, everything's magnetic. Okay. I was redoing the handle on the original handle. It needs just a few more minutes, I think. I believe I will turn it around. But the overall bushing there, it's got a ways to go to heat up that piece of metal. So we'll leave that about another 20 or 30 minutes and check on it and see how the other handle is doing. Okay, it's been about another 30 minutes now, and I believe our other handle is plenty blue. So we'll take it out, and I've got a little oil quench over here. This is by no means hardening anything, but this oil will kind of cool it down a little bit slower, but cool it down fast enough I can get hold of it. As you can see, the other piece now, our main piece is starting to turn. Probably another 15 or 20 minutes on that. I gave the main bushing piece another 15 minutes, and I believe it should be ready now. Yeah, that's a good blue. Get my cloth out of the way. And I'm just going to set that down in. Like I say, I got an oil quench down here. It's a, see if I can turn to it and show you. It's simply cooking oil from the wife's kitchen when she won't looking. That'll help cool it slow. And again, I'm not heat treating this by any means. I'm just bluing it. I had it at about 550 to 600 degrees after I got it regulated. And this largest piece has taken about, well, let's see, almost an hour to turn the blue that I was looking for. So I'm going to let these pieces cool down. I'll put them together, and then we'll meet back over at the break and recap this video. Okay, I'm back over here at the brake now, and we're going to put the original handle back in place. We'll get the keyway started on it. All right, now I'm going to tap the rod to the other end just a little bit, get it about centered on there. Now I'm going to bring it up again so that the keyway's at the top, just to make it a little easier to see. Put our modified key in. And here's our completed and blued handle. Now I'll tap the connecting rod again until I got it about centered between the two handles. That looks pretty good. So we'll put our locking bolt in this end and our locking in this end. And I can already see with this extra thickness out here, I'm going to need a little longer. I believe that's about probably a 6 or 8 millimeter bolt. Let me see if I've got one that'll work now. Okay, the bolts that were in there were just a little too short. It might would have caught a thread on each end, but that was pushing it. So I found some that are a bit longer, a little bit longer. These are socket head cap screws, but I think that'll be all right. So I'll put one down here. And tighten the two against each other. It's a little tight, but I think with a little use it'll free up some. I'll put plenty of oil in here. All right, so now I have a handle on both sides. Make life a little bit easier for this left-handed person. Oh, that little bit of oil right there made a big difference. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video, this series of videos. I think I'm going to conclude with this, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.